Welcome to Coach Joel's Corner, and we are going to begin our lesson. Today's lesson is going to be valuable for all levels, as we will see the do's and don'ts at the beginning of the game, and also we will see the masterful way to exploit if your opponent violates certain principle. So for our basic students, remember the do's and don'ts here, and for our advanced players, we will pause in the critical moments where you have to find the best move with relentless and powerful energetic moves. And here we go, friends. We will begin analyzing and go over our lesson of the day. In this position, we're going to be looking at it from Black's perspective. This is a game between Miezen versus Mueller. The game started with c4, not the most common way to start. I will always prefer if my students or the players start with the move pawn to e4 because it opens up your bishop and your queen rapidly. But if you play d4, you're only opening up your bishop. And as Bobby Fischer once said, e4 is best by test. But if you're a d4 player, that's completely fine. c4 is also fine, as long as you're trying to control the middle of the board. So white played c4, and as you can see, both experienced players, they just begin with, or by pushing the pawns in the middle of the board, influencing, controlling. Both parties just develops. That's what you want to do in the opening. You want to control the center, rapidly develop your pieces, and then put your king to safety. So white develops the piece towards the center, and that's what you're supposed to do. And after knight c3, black does the same thing. Alright, you as much as possible, every move that you do at the beginning of the game, it influences this 8 squares, as what we call the pizza pie squares. You want a piece of that pizza. Because the more you control the middle of the board, the easier it is for your army to move forward. You could attack left, forward, and right. Now both parties, following the basic principle of opening play, they both develop towards the center and also controls the middle of the board with pawns. Now after knight f3, one rule that you want to do during your game is that every move that your opponent does, you try to understand what they're trying to do. White attempts to take this pawn. Black, on the other hand, instead of just pushing another pawn, which is in our don'ts, don't push your pawn too many times because you could get punished for it. Here, black simply gets another piece out, defends against white's threat, and played knight c6. White now played d4. I don't think this is a very good move for white, although theoretically, grandmasters have played this in the past, but not to a very successful point. They have a lower win rate versus the win rate of black here, so that means it's not a very good move if black could comfortably get an equal position, even win more in practical games. So by playing d4, the bad thing about this is now your opponent has some sort of like a twin tower. There are two versions of twin towers. It's either e4 and d4. This time around, it's d4 and c4. By playing d4, one of our rules is that if you see the twin towers there, as much as possible, you don't want them to stay around like that because they could bully you around. They could dictate what you could do in the future. What we want to do is we want to capture that pawn. And the thing about d4, and why I dislike this move a lot, is because after capturing, the knight moves for the second time. Instead of just developing another piece or trying to get this bishop out, so white could put his king to safety, white is moving this same piece that is already out. It's like somebody's already doing a good job and you're going to give him another task. How about the other people? You want everybody in the community or the group involved. And that's not what white is doing. So by capturing on d4, black just simply gets another piece out. Now he has 3 pieces out, while white has 2. And that's already a very good sign for black. White's not doing well at the beginning of the game. And after bishop b4, in one move, black could also do his ability to put his king into safety, to castle. While white, on the other hand, is still going to take at least 3 moves if he starts now. And that's the thing. In this game, white made a few inaccuracies. But if you violate certain opening principle, that is enough for your opponent to take advantage of your mistake and lose the game. So after bishop b4, knight captures e6. The knight moved 3 times to take a knight that moved once. Sure, it's going to give your opponent double pawns. However, after taking on c6, we capture back, and instead of, again, focusing on developing another piece, he moved his knight 3 times already. What you want to do if you are the guy who has more development is to bring all your pieces to the middle of the board. At this point, after b takes e6, white tried to play pawn to g3. This is not a very good move. He would have been much more solid if he had played e3. Notice how he could probably develop this bishop out here actively pinning the knight, but the problem is it has no connection whatsoever on him being able to get his king to safety. He could also try to castle on this side of the board, the queen side. However, there is a lot of openings there, and black has quick access and just bring all his pieces into the pizza party. It's wide open. So he decided to play g3 because here, from this square, the bishop could control a very nice diagonal. Unfortunately, the problem with that is black is a little too quick. He plays queen e7, a very nice move. Normally, I don't like bringing my queen into the action, but black already has grave threats at this point. He is already pinpointing the queen towards the e-file, towards the king, x-raying, and ready to create threats against white's position. You want to start making energetic moves that will put your opponent under some pressure. And also slow down his development. So after queen e7, he plays bishop g2, and for our advanced player, this would be the perfect opportunity for you to pause and think about your next step. Right now, you have 3 pieces out. White is ready to castle next move. What are you going to do? Did you find the right move? Did you suggest a threatening move while developing bishop a6? Because if you did, congratulations. Now, instead of bishop a6, if you had castled here, you don't want to make this move. This would be a bad strategic move because then white could simply castle here, and then he doesn't have any problems with his king. Well, if you play bishop a6, he can't castle just quite yet because he would be giving up a pawn for absolutely nothing if he castles, and he's just basically now. Coach Joel, well, if that's the case, if my king's in trouble, can I just give up a pawn instead of getting my king in trouble? Yes, technically, that is a better way to go. But if you're playing an experienced player, a good player, if you just give up a pawn like that and black still has the better pieces, more activity, more controlled squares, that's basically very difficult to get back into the game because you're down material and you're still worse in terms of position. The only way you could defend it is by putting the queen on d3, but this is starting to look really, really nasty. By putting the queen on d3, now your pawn is on a pin. Can you find the next move for black? All right, let's see. Did you think about it? And did you find the best move for black? If you said the best move for black is, again, to somewhat quote-unquote develop, but this time you're not developing, you're dominating the center while creating another threat. You see, when you have the leading development, every step of the move, every step of the way, you could make your position better while you are delaying his ability to castle by making threats. And by playing d5, this is such a strong move because you're putting pressure towards the pin pawn. That's what some people would say, PP on PP. By playing d5, another nasty threat. Now you're attacking it twice. He's only guarding it once, and this queen is also more important than the bishop, so that's basically not a good trade if he captures back on c4 with the queen. So by playing d5, white plays b3, and we get to the critical position. And friends, a little hint, this is the reason why it's good to have more pieces out and putting your pieces in the best possible pressuring square is because when the opportunity is met, you could pull out a very nice tactical idea. Okay, did you find it? If your move for black here is something very energetic, right now, you have several good moves here, but one move stands out among them all. The move is pawn to d4. What a lovely move. This is the type of move that you want to make in your games when you are ahead in development. And this move is such a weird move at the moment because it looks like you are giving up a pawn. But that's basically going with the same principle. Keep making threats so you could delay your opponent's ability to castle. And not only that, this threatening move is actually linked to a nice sequence with black winning a lot of material. So if you played pawn to d4, tap yourself in the shoulder and say, great job, amazing move. And if you found the continuation of the move d4, even better. So the move that black played was d4. And after d4, he doesn't have a lot of choice. He has to capture. He has 2 captures here. Now, wait a second, Coach Joe. That looks like a really bad move. This bishop can capture the pawn. And now it's a fork. But the thing about this move is that we're going to do exactly the same thing as what happened in the game. We're just going to scoot the king over to f8. And yes, we are losing our ability to castle, but you have major threats, grave threats in white's position. You want to take this. If they take here, they got a pawn and a rook, but then now it's your turn. You get to capture this horse, this knight on c3, and that's a fork. Bishop takes e3, that's a check. And also at the same time, you are attacking the king and the rook. Wow. All right, so you're going to be up material. And you have a winning game. So he's not going to do that. Although, technically, this is better than what happened in the game. But if you're playing somebody pretty good, it's going to be hard to get back into the game and you're basically losing. Queen takes d4 was played, and black's main idea was he wanted to bring this rook over to d8 to attack the queen. Notice how this knight is so dependent to the defense of the queen. So what you're doing is you're trying to attack the queen so you could remove the guard of the knight. And no matter where he goes, if he moves somewhere random, you will take this knight and that's going to be a fork. So what's the only square where the white queen could go? The only square where the white queen could go while defending this knight is probably queen e3. Okay, because if you go to d3, the rook will just take you d2, e5, the queen's guarding that. If you go to e3, however, you're losing because all you have to do with black is capture the defender, remove the defender, capture the queen, and then now you're winning major material. At this point, white did this move. Bishop takes c6, attacking the king. This time, he's up 2 pawns. And after king d8, he found a very clever way to defend against black's threat, and that's bishop d5. And this is the last time we're going to pause. Friends, I want you guys to find the best move for black here. We're going to pause. You could pause the video and try to figure out the crushing continuation that black found here, which completely connects all the developing moves and the threatening moves that black made in this game. Okay, did you find it? The finishing blow, and the reason why black had set up his pieces like this, why is my bishop on a6, is because now black has an absolutely crushing move. Rook takes d5. What a lovely move. The knight can't recapture. It's pinned down right now. The queen cannot capture. He could, but then he's just losing the queen. There's another attacker. And he can't capture with the pawn either. And therefore, white resigned. Because if they take with the pawn, now we have this nasty move, nasty idea. And sometimes in chess, we just develop, we make threats, and all of a sudden, if we try to develop them towards the center, things just start to coordinate in a certain way. Just like this. So after rook takes d5, white had resigned. And we're going to do a quick recap in a sec, but hopefully you guys enjoyed that lesson and you found a lot of the critical moves. And guys, okay, so just a quick recap. What happened in that game? The deuce, develop and wake up your pieces rapidly. Kind of like what black did in that game. Black developed with threats as much as possible because it gives him time, and time is important in chess, especially at the beginning of the game. You don't want your king left off in the middle of the board, because when your opponent gets the opportunity to open up the middle, rip it open, and all his pieces are active, you can get in a lot of trouble. Your opponent can set up different types of projections of attack and also tactics in a position. And the move d4. How'd you like the move d4? That was beautiful. The don'ts. White played d4 in that game, moved the knight so many times. And he moved the knight 3 times to capture a knight that moved once. He got so delayed because he moved the knight so many times instead of getting his pieces out, instead of involving the whole group, which is what you're supposed to do as a team. He didn't do that. Last but not the least, because he just focused on moving his knight. He loves his horses so much, okay, that he forgot to prioritize the king's safety. All right, and now, if you guys have any questions, let us know. And hopefully you guys enjoyed that lesson. Peace out, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.